In the manga community, there are a lot of authors that are considered the best by many. Whether it's Eiichiro Oda or Hirohiko Araki, it's always these giants with very huge long-running series behind them. But what if I told you that there is a more successful mangaka than those two? And the person that I'm going to talk about is none other than the legend himself, Naoki Urasawa. For those that do not know Naoki Urasawa, he's a 64-year-old manga writer and artist, who I believe to be one of the most successful yet underappreciated people in the industry. Sure, when you think of success, you might think of money or fame, but is that all there is to it? Some people might measure success by looking at stuff like achievements, and I honestly think that what Urasawa has created in his career is on par with what someone like Eiichiro Oda has done. And what I mean by this is the way he managed to create multiple manga that are each considered masterpieces by many. Now, to put it into perspective, imagine 5 different stories with the quality of something like One Piece or Attack on Titan. Now, to be honest, that's a good looking portfolio to have as your legacy. Now, Urasawa is pretty old, and with his insane consistency, you can imagine that he has created a multitude of manga in his career. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to focus on the 4 main giants that have gained popularity in the past throughout the manga and anime community. So sit back and relax while we dive into the creative mastermind of Naoki Urasawa. In this first section, I'm going to start with one of his most creative works called Billy Bat. Now, Billy Bat is not as successful internationally because there is no English translation of it yet, so I understand if you might not have read or heard much about this manga, but if you did indeed read it through legal means, then you might know that this is one of the craziest stories ever told. For the people that do not know, it's where this panel comes from, which is highly misinterpreted, and it's kind of wild to take in without any context, but bear with me for a sec. Billy Bat is about Kevin Yamagata, a comic book writer, and his comic called Billy Bat. Out of nowhere, his comic book gains popularity, and at the same time he realizes that the bat, which is the main character, actually existed before in a manga. Naturally, he then travels to Japan in order to get permission to use this character, and while on this journey, he finds out the true influence of this supposed manga character throughout history. And yes, a lot of famous people appear in this, so I hope that explains a bit of the manga panel that everyone asks about. It's not that complicated, but you do need to read the manga for a much bigger context. This manga was originally written in 2008 by Urasawa and a very well-known collaborator called Takashi Nagasaki. It's definitely one of the newer Urasawa works, having ended only in 2016, which is kind of new, I guess, but apparently that's like 8 years ago. But anyways, I especially like the way it plays with the fourth wall and how there are a ton of references to real world events. The manga is 165 chapters long or 20 volumes, but don't worry, I would actually say it's one of the easiest to read on this list. Now heading on to the next title, we have PLUTO. PLUTO currently has over 10 million copies in circulation, and it played a pretty big part in Urasawa's career, and especially recently. I believe most people would find this name familiar because of its anime adaptation last year, but I'm still not too sure about its popularity, at least not entirely. You see, the anime was released by Netflix with all episodes at the same time, so the hype surrounding it was not that high, or it didn't really peak, should I say. But anyways, in case you don't know, this is a manga set in a futuristic world where we follow Detective Geschicht solve a series of murder cases that surprisingly tie into one another. I can't say more, but essentially it involves robots and the philosophy behind what exactly is a robot mind. The world that is set in is originally taken from Osamu Tezuka's manga Astro Boy, and if you don't know who that is, well, basically he's the grandpa of manga and anime. But yeah, basically he wrote this one manga back in 1961, which was made more of like a cartoon for kids, following this robot called Adam, but it has little to no relation to Pluto at all. Besides some names and characters here and there is almost nothing similar to it. The tone is much darker, the characters look different, and they do different things. And what's more, it's not even a shonen. I say this because Tezuka is credited as a co-author, but I guess it's just so Urasawa can show his respect and I guess pay homage to the late Tezuka. To trace back to PLUTO, it was written in 2003 and it spanned for over 60 years despite its very low chapter count, which makes sense considering he was writing other manga like Billy Bat at at the same time. Now, to tell you a bit of my personal experience with PLUTO, I checked out the manga when it was finished and I liked it quite a bit, but after watching the anime, it just completely elevated the source material for me. I heard some people feel unsatisfied with the adaptation, no clue what that is about. I found it amazing from the score to the animation and basically everything. The only thing that I would probably changed was the runtime, and with that maybe the episode count as well. You see, the series' length is about 24 episodes of 20 minutes in length, but they minimized it to only 8 episodes of around an hour each, which kind of westernized it a bit, I guess, since most Netflix series have that sort of structure, but at the same time, for the sake of its popularity as well, I think it would have benefited it a lot more. Now we are finally getting into the absolute peaks of Urasawa, so what better way to start than with his most popular manga, 20th Century Boys, plus its sequel, 21st Century Boys. There's very little chance you've never heard of this title before, but if you haven't, 20th Century Boys is about these grown-ups that are living their lives separately in the 20th century, but something suddenly happens when this masked figure called Friend appears, and this guy plans to take over the world and gain as much influence and political power. Thing is, every sign is pointing towards the masked figure being one of their friends back in the day, but because these guys are grown up now, they can't really remember who is part of their friend group back then. So this whole search begins with everyone regrouping and now trying to decipher this mystery. Now that for me is one of the craziest premises I've probably ever heard. This also happens to be one of Urasawa's longest manga to date, spanning for over 7 years with 249 chapters, which makes up for about 22 volumes. A lot of people consider this Urasawa's magnum opus, and although I do disagree, I can definitely see why people would say that. This manga has over 36 copies in circulation, and as far as I know, it's the biggest Urasawa work to date, or at least popularity wise. It basically put him on the map very early on, and it was a huge shift from here. This is also one of those manga that you just can't find a reason as to why there has been no anime adaptation done to it at all. And I find it so odd because it's also pretty long, so production companies could definitely make big money from this. Anyways, this is probably one of the most creative ideas I've seen in any manga, and it's definitely one of the craziest stories I've read as well. Having said that though, I don't think it's quite an easy read, and I don't mean it in a bad way. But there's a lot of stuff happening, the plot is very grand, and it just develops and snowballs continuously, with mysteries piling up upon other mysteries, but nonetheless, all I can say is that it's very worth it by the end. The way everything unfolds into your lap is like no other, and I highly recommend it. Its sequel, 21st Century Boys, comes a bit after the original, and it serves more like an epilogue that follows what the characters are doing now in the future, and it also adds a bit more context as well to some of the moments from the original. I don't really consider it that important. I guess it's just something that was bothering Urasawa, so he probably just released it for that reason only. Naoki Urasawa's Monster. I feel like no matter how hard I try to talk about this manga, I just cannot do it justice. But also, so many people have talked about this manga before. So many people have analyzed this to the brim, and yes, I do believe this is Urasawa's magnum opus. It's a complete masterclass in storytelling and in basically every other regard. Monster follows a doctor who saves the life of a little kid who later on becomes a serial killer. It's as simple as that, but trust me, it's much more than it seems. The cast of characters are probably one of the best casts I've seen in any manga or anime. It's just something else. Now, this is not Urasawa's first manga, but it's definitely his first major manga that people tend to appreciate immediately. With over 20 million copies in circulation, this is one of Urasawa's most successful works to date. With 162 chapters, this series spanned for over 7 years since 1994. And the crazy thing about this is that he started writing 20th Century Boys while writing the final act of this manga. And that's just unreal to me. The fact that he wrote those two stories back to back while both being so highly acclaimed by everyone is just insane to me. I can't really think of any other author that has done something like that before. As you probably know as well, Monster has its own anime adaptation that came out back in 2004, and I can honestly call it one of the best adaptations I've ever seen. I can't really remember any other story that follows its source material as closely as Monster's adaptation does. I mean, sure, some people may think that the anime should have taken more creative liberties, but I honestly disagree just because of the type of story that Monster is. I don't think there's any need for extra style or animation put into it. It's just perfect as it is, and I'm glad that they took that approach in the anime as well. To end things off, I would like to make a small segment for Naoki Urasawa's current ongoing manga called ASADORA. It's about this little girl called Asa whose mother is about to give birth, so she goes to ask for help when she meets a burglar that eventually captures her for ransom. There's a bit of a twist after this, but I just can't spoil you, but trust me, it's a great story so far, and it was released fairly recently as well, in 2018. Keep in mind that not that many chapters have been released so far. It seems like Urasawa is taking his time with this story because he has been taking a lot of breaks, and I guess it makes sense because of his age. But all I can say about this manga is that everything has been unfolding beautifully so far, especially in the last few chapters, so I highly recommend it because it's looking like a hidden gem right now. It's also being published in English, which would make it the fastest Urasawa work to be translated so fast, which is pretty cool as well. I do plan on maybe making a future video on it if you guys would like as well. I feel like this is where Urasawa's art style and storytelling evolves, and you can definitely see it. We've finally reached the end of the video. I first want to thank you all for the 1000 subscribers. We hit that pretty fast and I can't be more thankful. I know I'm not really the type to respond to all of the comments, but be sure that I read all of them no matter what you guys are saying, whether it's something positive or not. So yeah, just keep commenting because I see all of your comments. Thank you again for watching this video up until the end. See you guys next time. Peace.